Hello, and welcome to the seventh episode of Bass Cafe with Holly and Dean.
I'm Holly.
And I'm Dean. And today we are going to talk about the importance of saying yes to the gig and why the best ability is availability. Right?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And we're also going to be talking about once you get in that band, what is your role in that band? Because it's still very important to make sure that you know not to step on anybody's toes.
And if you do step on anyone's toes and you want to stand your ground, you just have to understand that there might be repercussions, right?
Yeah,
We
you
all
said
know that.
people.
So for me in specific on this topic, as we've established, I started playing guitar as my main instrument, but I had a bass alongside that instrument since almost day one. And oddly enough, I have gone on tour as a guitar tech, and then in a last minute effort, I um I got pulled on stage to play guitar because a guitar player had to leave. But every other US tour that I've done, other than that one band, has been on bass. I played bass for a band called The Independents. I played bass for a band called Children of October. I played bass for Michael Graves, for former singer of the Misfits, and then I played bass for Nita Strauss. And in a whole bunch of those scenarios, I wasn't really like prepared to take on that gig, right? Like I'm sure you've had issues like that, right? Like were you ever just like nervous about saying yes to the gig?
Yeah, my first gig, I wasn't really playing bass, or I didn't even think about playing bass, but somebody asked me to play bass, and I thought, well, I really want to be in a band and I want to learn how to play music, so why not say yes to playing the bass? And here I am now.
And and there's so many avenues too, because people have to realize that the world operates multidimensionally, right? So I'm a guitar player, and when I said yes to playing in the Independents, I was actually supposed to go on tour and play for a band called Black Cat Attack. There was this tour called the Double Trouble Tour in 2015, and I was getting hired by Black Cat Attack to do like the second half of the tour. Their guitar player had to leave. His name's Dave Brown Sound. He plays guitar in Sum 41. And in the interim, he's a part of this band, Black Cat Attack, but Sum 41 had gigs and he had to be there for them. So they brought me on. And for 6 weeks, I was preparing for this tour for 6 weeks um, of going around the United States playing lead guitar for this band in place of Dave Brownsound, one of the smoothest guitar players, by the way. I don't know if you've ever seen that dude play guitar, but next time you see like Sum 41 live or anything, just watch Dave's hands. Like 70% of that gig was me trying to just play as smooth as him. It wasn't even so much about the songs because the songs were hard at parts and whatever. But I just wanted to, when I played them, I just wanted to play them and look like his hands just look like they flowed. Like I don't know how to describe that, right? It's just comfort and like knowing your shit.
Yeah.
Um, but I said yes to this gig, and it kind of actually, funny enough, saying yes to that gig got me fired from Darrow Chemical Company. And then when half of Black Hat Attack couldn't get in for the tour, there was this band, The Independents, who they were sharing a bass player, right? So they didn't have a bass player for their tour. So since Black Cat Attack couldn't come in, the Independents could not find anyone in 4 days' notice to take off for 6 weeks to play bass. So Evil, the singer, called me up and he goes, "Yo, I know that you were planning on like going on tour to play guitar, but he's like, would you? We can't find anyone to fill in. So would you want to?" They didn't know me at all. They're like, "Would you want to play bass for us?" I was like, "Sure." And like I had known of the band.
Yeah.
They used to be managed by Joey Ramone. Like I've known of them, but I couldn't like name a song at that point, right? And so I had 3 days to learn 21 songs on bass. And I got flown into Atlanta, and then we drove to Pensacola on the very first night of the tour, too. after learning 21 songs in 3 days, Evil, the singer, called a song that was a crowd request called Fire and Ice. And it was not on my list. And he kind of just like looked at me and he's like, all right, well, this one's called Fire and Ice. And then I just took the lead, like because bass is that cool thing where you can kind of slide in. And so I listened to the guitar player start and it was like just two notes. Dun, 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 dun. So I was able to kind of like, whoa, there's the note. Oh,
Yeah.
there's the other one. Sweet. And I was able to like kind of like get through, right? And after learning 21 of the songs, I got to know a couple of like the ideas of how they moved from like verses to chorus and stuff. So I had some wherewithal, but it was still unnerving.
Yeah.
Saying yes to that gig got me to play for this other band called Children of October, who were two band members who also used to fill in this band. And they were actually the ones that recommended me for this gig. So it's like I played in all these shows with these bands. I shook hands. I, made myself part of the community, and I was getting recommended for gigs. Because I said yes to the gigs, my whole life changed.
Yeah.
916 Custom Guitars. I'm wearing this shirt by mistake with this story. But that's how my endorsement started with 916 pickups, which led to me having my own signature guitar pickup for 6, 7, and 8-string guitar, is because I said yes to this gig playing bass for the Independents. That gave me experience. Playing in Children of October gave me experience. Again, I just saw an ad from these guys were putting up looking for a touring bass player. I sent them an email and sent them a DM on like Facebook. I'm like, hey man, like I don't have anything going on. Like, do you guys still need a bass player? And they're like, yeah, that's awesome. We were thinking about asking you, but we didn't know.
Mhm.
So I said yes to that.
Mhm.
I got 3 days notice to play bass for Michael Graves. They were looking around for a bass player, couldn't find one. They had issues with their other bass players. And I was like, I knew the guys. So I was like, yo, like, just, do you want me to go on tour with you? like that. Like, and I had to audition and I had to do videos. I filled in on one tour last minute, and then I still had to go through the audition process for the second tour. Did that, said yes to that. That kind of that like characteristic of me with learning songs and going on tour and learning the ropes and going on the road and doing all this stuff, that led to me working with Angel Vivaldi. And I got offered by him after telling him a couple of these tour stories and him seeing stuff that I'd done and knowing me from, the scene, because I was in all these different bands, popping my head up, he offered me to play in his band. And even though I got cut from playing in his band 2 weeks before the tour, um, I still wound up playing bass for Nita Strauss.
Yeah.
And there's a story, there's a long story, but I don't want to talk too much about all the specifics, right? But I will gladly tell everyone. I just want Holly to talk, because otherwise I'll just be here the whole time talking. But that directly led to me playing bass for Nita Strauss, which directly led to me getting hired by Static X. And I'll tell you, Static X, I had to make a fire decision. Like, I was in Texas the last night of the tour. I was ready to go home. I had a plane ticket with my name on it. I'd been on the road for 6 weeks. And on the very last show, Static X asked me to drive their merch truck.
Cool.
And I had a show with one of my other bands, the same band that fired me in 2015.
Yeah.
I said yes to this gig and semi jeopardized that band, but like I had to make the right opportunity. I had to say yes to the right gig.
Yeah.
And that was hard. It was hard to call up my friends and be like, hey man, I'm not going to make this really important show because, well, I got 6 weeks worth of work making good money. So, it sucks. I had to make that call. Static X, I busted my ass on that tour. I was hired as a driver and did a whole bunch of extra work, stuff that was not required of me. I stayed late and showed up early and busted my ass and asked everyone if they needed help. I studied their stage setup, man. Like I'd never seen it. For me, it wasn't right, but their setup was so big that it felt like I was watching like Metallica every single night, like set up, or every
Yeah.
single day, right? Because they had so much shit that load-in was 9 and 10 in the morning. Like that's how much stuff they had, every single night. Saying yes to that, working on that, got me hired by Prong, an agnostic front, and I met a bunch of people there. Um, you get a gig, you take phone numbers, you shake hands, you get along with as many people as you can.
Yeah.
I didn't get along with everyone on every tour all the time, but I got along with most of the people most of the time. And that's all you can really do. Sometimes life's rough on the road.
Yeah.
And that led to me being now, like, whenever we're allowed to tour again, I'm going to be guitar teching for Danzig, hopefully. Right. Like I was supposed to, but tours got canceled last year.
Whatever comes up, because you're now in that rank of working with these types of people, and that's, you can see just from your story of like where you started, the
Yeah.
more you
I
start
started,
working.
I started saying this band that you don't know of up until
Yeah.
Danzig. Yeah. Yeah. Because
Well,
that's what it is. Like, you
yeah.
can't climb the ladder if you're not saying yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you can't say yes if you have fear. And that's a big part of it, is a lot of people have fear to say yes because they feel like they're not going to be capable of doing what the last person did, which is BS.
Secret is every single gig that I got offered last minute and said yes to and took off and went on tour. Um, I was nervous as all hell first few shows for sure. I I wasn't really like, I wouldn't have considered myself a bassist before 2015. Once yes, I had played in bands and rehearsed with bands and played bass in bands, and I was even had a 4-song demo where I was playing a 6-string bass.
Mhm.
I still didn't really consider myself a bassist because I only played a handful of shows like that, right? But when the independents hired me, their stuff wasn't all just like root notes. That's a horror ska band, so there was bass line after bass line.
Really nice, pretty bass lines too.
Yeah, and they told me like, don't worry about it. Like, just you could just play root notes, like it's fine.
Mhm.
And I did on the first few nights, because I had such little time. But on that tour, and I'm pretty synonymous with this normally, but on that tour, every single night before I played an hour set with the Independents, an hour and a half before the set, I would play the full hour-long set
Yeah.
and practice and go through and learn and see if I couldn't learn something else and make myself better. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and in every gig, I did as good as I possibly could, and that all leads to another gig. And in order to say yes to some bands, I did have to say no to other bands.
Yeah.
Um,
But that's a good problem to have.
right. And this whole journey, all those bands, um, and it's funny, that band, Darrow Chemical Company, they hired me because of this band, Darkness Descends, wherever it is. This way.
Mhm.
There it is. Which we're filming this on the 13th, and it's 9 years to the day of me doing that album with those guys. And it was me playing 7-string in this band. Like, it, every single thing in my career I could draw a straight line from the beginning all the way to right now. I know Holly because I said yes and was on that Nita Strauss tour, busted my ass, got hired for a second one, and met Holly in Dallas
Yeah.
and shot the shit at a bar. And here we are now. Like,
Yeah.
saying yes just pushes you forward. Sometimes other things will fade out, but if you don't keep saying yes, eventually you're not going to have any jobs. Like,
Right. You can't be picky in the beginning. You need to get out there and get experience. And you also really want to, I mean, you want to have people that you want to work with, but sometimes you just need to say yes to get your name, to get yourself out there. I wasn't known as a musician at all because I really wasn't. I wasn't known as a bassist, but I started messing around on my computer with loops and arrangements, and someone recognized that. And they had also seen me kind of try to play instruments, on my own before. And they knew that I had something, and so he took a chance on me. But I said, I remember the exact moment when he's like, "You want to play bass?" And I said, "Yeah." I mean, it's just like I didn't even think about it. I thought maybe for a slight second, "Oh, crap, this means I'll be in a band." Great. Okay, yes,
Yeah.
And
And it
yeah,
comes with
and when
pressure, right?
Mhm.
It
Yeah,
comes
it
with
comes with a
pressure.
lot of pressure. I went home that night. I had rehearsal the next day. I didn't know any of the songs. He sent me the songs, but they were on the sound was really bad. I had no idea how to match frequencies. I didn't know any of this stuff. All I knew was E, A, D, and G on the bass, and so it was just hours and hours and hours. And I would wake up before gigs after I've established that I could play in a band. I'd wake up before gigs. That day, I would do all of the songs, and maybe two or three times I'd run through them. And just like and with all my bands, even Zepparella, before I get up on stage when I was learning the songs or when I'm learning a new song, I play that song three or four times before I play it that night. It's to lock it in. It's to
Yeah,
really.
and Nita has that rule of thumb too, like especially if you're learning things last minute, 5 times without a mistake before you move on, right? I love that rule. That's a
Yes.
hard rule to discipline yourself to, especially if you're playing something really difficult, because
Yeah.
sometimes you get through it once and you're like, whew, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. But how our brains work is if we do it wrong, we're going to remember it wrong. So we have
Yep.
to take that time to do that. So my second band I was in, we were going to go and start a new band. Half of the my first band was starting a new band, and this girl came from California, Kes, my old singer in Honey. She's from Australia, but she'd come from California to watch me play in this band. Her friend had brought her, and she knew that she wanted to start a band with me. And so, because she knew more about music theory, and that's what I really wanted to start learning, I went with her. And she moved in with me. We lived together. We started a band together, and I mean the rest is history. But like we had a mutual like respect for each other of learning. And then when I got to the point where I wanted to learn more, I joined a cover band. And it was a lot of times just a two piece. And that's really great for a bassist because you learn how to fill in parts.
And
Do you have?
I never joined a cover band, right? And I'm from New Jersey, and there's more cover bands in New Jersey than there is any kind of original band, right? LA has tons of cover bands, but they also have boatloads and boatloads of like original musicians.
Yeah.
I never really played in cover bands, but um I've joined all these established bands.
Yeah.
So it's not like I was the bass player on any of these albums on any of these tours, right? So I was still getting
You're still covering someone else's music, no matter if.
but I'm still learning like the inner workings of something complex that I didn't think about that I'm like piecing together. So I'm still getting the education, just different, you
Yeah,
know?
I really enjoy taking a whole like an artist's whole life's work and really figuring out how they do it. Because John Paul Jones does it a certain way. Most people won't pick it up. They'll just be like, "Oh, he's really great at it as a bass player." He has a certain way about how he
I know
plays.
I've learned like a handful of Zeppelin tunes
Yeah,
over
but just the
the
way he
years.
manipulates the music and how he uses the scale, it's there's a
Yeah, and how
way.
he just throws notes in sometimes just to fill in a hole that you didn't even know existed until he filled it.
Exactly. And also, when I was playing in the cover bands, because I've played in several of those, you learn a bunch of different music from a bunch of different artists. And depending on who you're working for or working with, some of them want you to be almost exact, and some of them are just like, well, just play to me, the guitar player. And so it just depends. And I really learned in those cover bands how to branch out of my playing and understand what songs use a lot of 1 4 5 and octave, and what songs branch out to the 3 and the 7 and the 6. So it's pretty interesting just to learn that about bass playing in general, just being able to say yes to whatever band. I mean, these cover bands, I'd have to learn 100 songs, or at least 60. But when
Right.
it was done and over, about 100.
For Michael Graves on the second tour I did with him, which was 4 months around the US twice, um, I had to know 75 songs.
Yeah,
We played just under 30 songs. We played like 25 to 26 songs every single night, 1 hour nonstop.
yeah,
Nonstop. Like we start and we did not stop until
mhm,
right before Dig Up Her Bones, which was the last song. Like
yeah,
we played solid. And that's crazy. That's crazy, right? And you have to be you really have to know your material in order to do that.
yeah, to pick it up and just to do it.
Mhm.
And I've had a lot of conversations with people over the years that hate tribute bands or hate cover bands. Like, why would you want to do that? Why don't you go do your own thing? You learn so much from being in a tribute and a cover band. And also, pretty much, I'd say 99% of the musicians out there are in a cover band because they're not playing their own music.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, not everyone is as stubborn as people like me who like, yeah, I'm gonna do the solo gig thing.
well, no, the solo bands, I mean, that's an artist. There's a lot of artists out there. But if you were to go, like, say, Nita, if you want to go play with Nita, you're still playing her music. So you're playing in her band, learning her music. It's the same as going to a cover band. Although she's in the band and that's her name and everything. So it is different. But you're still,
That
as a musician.
specific band is I had a lot more freedom than other bands. All the other bands that I was in,
Yeah.
like the Independents had a 25-year long career. Michael's, the American Psycho with the Misfits has been out for like 20 something years. Right, it came out in 95. So like, come on. Like everybody had heard all of those songs. They had heard all of those bass lines. Those bass lines had decades to get into people's ears. With Nita, she played bass on the album and didn't go too crazy with it, right? So that as long as anything, luckily, like all those gigs that I learned playing in the Independents and learning Jerry only bass lines and all this other stuff, um, and even being thrashy. Children of October was a thrash punk band. It was a 3-piece. We were loud, we were fast, and it was great. And we were very green. Everything was green. Um, it was so good, and I learned so much. I learned so much from those gigs,
Mhm.
learning other people's bass lines. So that way, when it came time for me to be able to expand upon Nita stuff, I kind of knew what worked already. And I kind of like when I saw similar moves, I'd be like, oh, I know what this is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, there's a song by Nita Strauss called Allegria.
Mhm.
It is the same chord progression as Dig Up Her Bones.
Okay.
The very first Nita Strauss tour, I would
Mhm.
go over to Jay Tarantino in that song. And
Mhm.
while playing that riff on
Mhm.
stage, I would sing Dig Up Her Bones to him. And then one day the sound guy came up to me and he goes, what are you singing on stage? Because he's only hit the board. He definitely can't hear with
Yeah.
Josh Smash on the drums. You know what I mean? Like everything was so loud, and we had amps on that tour. He's like, "What are you singing?" And I was like, "I'm singing Dig Up Her Bones, man." He goes, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "No." It's like it's the same. It's the same but different, right? Like only the rhythm track is the same chord progression. It's not in the same exact key, whatever.
I was in the studio with Honey one time, and our guitar player, who apparently didn't do his homework and was taking all day to try and come up with something, or the girl that wrote the song, because this was one we didn't write together. She looked at him. She goes, "Okay, it's the same progression as November Rain. Get it down. I'm effing tired of this." And
Yeah.
walked out. And he was like, oh, okay, and it's like, whatever.
So to expand upon like getting these gigs in bands, right? I've definitely I like, what I love about this podcast the most? I like being able to tell everyone what I think I messed up on.
Good, yeah.
Yeah,
You should.
because instead of like sitting here like getting mad at myself for it, I just, we all just want to move forward. And I've been a teacher for a decade now. So my number one thing, not only being a parent and being a teacher, is to make sure that those who I am trying to inspire are not going to suffer from the same misfortunes as me. Like I hope everyone has just as many fortunes as I have had and even more than me. Please have at it. Like there's plenty room for everyone.
Absolutely. I don't think a lot of people get that. I mean, the world is full of infinite possibilities, and right now, obviously, we see big tech companies taking over everyone.
Mm.
I'm not going to get on this on like a weird thing, but I'm just saying that when you have something that is that big, nobody gets their individuality. And so the world is a big enough place for us to have our individualities, and it's important to remember that there's room enough for everyone. We only need a handful
I'm
of.
I'm trying very hard to just because not everyone thinks that way. Not everyone thinks that way. We think that way. We think that there's room for everyone. Not everyone thinks that you should be able to do your own thing. Apparently,
Yeah,
um,
well, it's funny, but you know, making a living in the music industry. Okay, so maybe there's some people at the top that got there and they're worth millions of dollars, but right now we're not seeing that because we're seeing big tech companies take away the musicians' money left and right. And
yeah,
so
they've been
and
doing it for a long time.
they've been doing it for a long time.
Honestly, though, like let's be real. Let's be frank. They've literally been taking musicians' money since the day of recorded music.
Yeah.
Ever since the allure of getting someone who used to just play their guitar on their porch in Memphis and then bringing them into Sun Studios and printing those discs and, turning people like Carl Perkins into household names or Jerry Lee Lewis or Elvis Presley, like or Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, like so many of those people, like only the singers, even the Beach Boys, right? Like only the singers really were even on the albums most of the time. A lot of the time the musicians were even just studio musicians. Like since the beginning of time, musicians have been getting screwed by someone, you know. And that's all the more reason to say yes to everything because the one thing that is rare is for what you're doing to be the same exact thing that you're going to do forever.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like that's the real rarity.
Consistency.
Yeah,
But to make a living, we only need a handful of people to really believe in us, and that's where people
like
get
100. You need like what is it? 100 true fans, right?
and people don't understand that. They think, well, I've got to have a million fans for them to buy my records, and it's like, no, you really only need to put out the music that you want to put out when you want to put it out, and you want the people who really want it to buy it because they're going to support you, they're going to listen to it.
Previous to Napster, and I
Mm-hmm.
know I've brought this up in another podcast, but way before Napster ever existed, back in the day of musicians making tons of money, MC Hammer said that he made more money selling his mixtapes out of the trunk of his car than he ever did per unit on his record label. And that dude had songs in movies. That dude had songs everywhere. Like that dude wore a pair of pants and that those parachute pants took over the world.
Over. I mean, yeah, I
Dude,
vanilla.
those pants that MC Hammer wore in Can't Touch This, they took over the world, dude. And that dude was penniless and broke not long after, right? So
Insane.
they've been
It's
doing it forever. Some of us do what we do. And we realize, all right, there's like a whole ocean. We got to dip our hands in a couple of different pots here, right? And and that's why another reason why I started my solo project. And another the reason why I called it Dean, like I was gonna give my solo band a band name. And the
yeah.
only reason why I didn't give it a band name is because I said yes to so many gigs. And it was Dean from the Independents, Dean from Darrow Chemical Company, Dean from Darkness Descends, Dean from Alex, Dean from Nita Strauss, Dean from Michael Graves, Dean from Children of October. So I was like, well, I kind of been shaking hands as Dean, for the last 7 years. Maybe when I release my album, I'm just gonna call it Dean. Like it made it simple to me to I've been putting all that time into that name basically
Yeah.
by saying yes, you know?
Yeah, and the same way everybody knew me as, Holly West from this band or that band. And when I wrote my own music, I wanted to hire whoever I wanted to hire, and I wanted them to. I don't hire, if I hire a drummer, I want them to play the songs how they want to play the songs. They don't have to be exact, but they need to hit on, a couple things. I'm not like a stickler about it, but I also wanted control, to be able to say that. And
Yeah,
so
and I think Nita did something similar, right? Like she's literally Nita Strauss from We Start Wars, Nita Strauss from Alice Cooper, Nita Strauss from the Iron Maidens. You know, like um and then when her solo band came out, what was it called? It wasn't called Popsicle Stick. It was called Nita Strauss. You know what I mean? Like it's, some of that makes sense. And it's because she said yes to all these gigs. And I'll tell you, I the weight on my shoulders going from Nita Strauss playing bass that day,
Mhm.
getting offered the gig from Static X. The day that I got offered that, I didn't know what to do because in order to take this gig, I literally had to screw over my friends and get someone to fill in for me in less than a week for this
Yeah,
one show.
yeah,
Luckily, I was able to call an old guitar player of the band, so like it went over a lot smoother than it could have, right?
yeah,
If that other guitar player didn't do the gig, like it wouldn't have worked.
right.
Um, but I sat down and I asked Nita, and I was like, "What should I do?" And she goes, "If you want me to be really honest, take the gig." I was like, "Yeah, huh?" Like, and I'm looking at my boss who's done all of the things that I want to do, and she's younger than me. So like that's, it's inspiring too. Just a few years. Luckily, I'm not, grandpa or nothing, but she's younger than me and she's done so much more than me. And so I didn't look at age or gender or anything else. I looked at a phenom who's been doing all the things that I want to do, looked me in the eye and was like, "You should probably do this." You know what I did? Exactly what that person told me to do.
Yeah. Yeah, when I started playing bass and people and I told my mentors, because I've always had a few mentors, really awesome mentors, a couple of them we've had on the show. I asked them, what am I supposed to do to get better? And they all said the same thing: play with better people, play with as many people as you can, take as many gigs as you
Play
can.
with better people, play with worse people, just play with more
Yeah,
people.
yeah, you can learn a lot from worse people too. And also, you can teach them. You can help them understand music better, to play with you better, and that will help you be better.
If you play with the drummer who falls off time every time he does this one roll, you know, if like I'm always the guy on a stage that when something like that happens, like I'll become the stage conductor. If I'm able to fix it, I'll become the stage conductor to fix that moment. If it was my mistake, if it was this person, it doesn't matter. Whoever's mistake it was, like
Yeah.
we all got to come together in those moments. So even if you're, the best player in the band, I'm sure that there's something that you can become better at. And one of those could be is like being the stage conductor, being the guy who fixes, the mistake that happens, being the guy who, when the
Most,
singer trips over the mic, the kick drum mic, and you're the bass player, you run over and you use your foot to put the mic back.
yeah,
Like little stuff like that, right?
but there's usually in a band the musical director, like the guitar player, the singer, the bass player, whoever is chosen as the musical director, and they they really need to just have respect, and you need to respect them, and you need to respect the singer and where you stand on stage, and you need to respect everything that's
Right. So we wanted to jump into that. So in all these gigs that I've had to take and you've had to take, there are certain times when yes, you say you're supposed to say yes to the gig, and when you do, you're supposed to do your best job. And sometimes that means learning trial by fire what to do and what not to do in that band. I have
happening.
absolutely been let go from bands for being too much of a performer.
Yeah. Yeah, and
I've been hired by bands because of that same thing.
I've been yelled at on stage for not performing enough, and then I've also been talked to about doing a little less performance, and each
Yeah,
one's
and something that we were talking about right before we started recording this podcast is when I was on my second tour with Nita. Both Johnny Young and I are both insane performers,
yeah.
and not just players, but performers. Nita is also an insane performer. I swear, like I could bring my A plus plus game every night. I would still feel like that chick outperformed me every single night. And it was a pleasure being next to her on stage, to and I'm sorry to all my past band members, but to finally feel that, to finally feel like I'm bringing everything I got, and you're still kicking my ass. Like I love that. I love that. I want to be put in. Um, but because of that, sometimes we would play these gigs, and there'd be like subwoofers and stuff in front of the stage. And so we'd go in, and when you get hired by a band, you want to be the best for them. Like that's what you want. You want to be the best for them. And so Johnny and I, in the first couple of shows of the tour, we would like jump up on these monitors and stuff like that. And Nita let us know, listen, when I play for Alice Cooper, Alice sets the line. And you had told me a similar story where you had a band where someone set the line like that. Can you explain that for people?
Yeah, in Zepparella, because I was overperforming because that's where I come from. I used to get yelled at on stage for not performing, and then in my second band, she couldn't really do anything while she's singing, so we're going crazy. And in my own band, I like that too. So I'm in this new band, and I really want to make a good performance. And one of our first tours is through Texas, and I really want to make sure I perform for my people. And I'm excited about it. And there's a bunch of like really awesome pictures of me just like real smiling and up there on the monitors and everything. But what happens is you don't want to steal the show either. And you want things from a person's perspective. When you're a crowd's perspective looking at the stage, you want everything to make sense, right?
Right.
So what Gretchen explained to me is, besides having her pedal board there at the front of the stage, she lets Anna establish the line. Anna's our singer, and that's the line. And we should at least stay 1 foot behind the line, or right at behind the line.
Given the stage approach.
Given the stage, yeah.
Yeah.
But even just that little tiny bit of depth perception from the other side of the stage makes the show look more professional and put together.
Also makes your singer look larger than life.
Absolutely. And we got
You
a
know,
really tiny singer, so we have to make sure she looks.
and that's like again being part of the team because you guys are putting the show ahead of yourselves, and that's something you have to learn and you have to mold and meld.
Now,
I'm very similar. But
I have a couple of bass solos that I do during the show, and that's when I go up to the monitor and I plant my foot and I just get into the crowd, and it's because you're supposed to, right? I mean, it's my solo. That's who's supposed to be at the forefront, and so I know that's my time to shine in front.
yeah, and you know the overall um the overall image is what matters. I really, I've messed up. I've messed up by just not paying attention to that right away all the time, right? And that's again, you have to do what's best for the show. And with that, it's not only just the onstage stuff, it's the offstage stuff. When you're touring with the band and you're in close quarters, you got to be considerate, right? You got to make sure that you, especially when you're a bass player, your job as a band member too, so many of your musical responsibilities have personal metaphors. So like being the glue between the band on stage as a bass player,
Yeah.
you also are the glue off stage
Mhm.
with the band. In so many of my bands, the bass player is the glue between the guitar player and the drummer, just outside in the parking lot,
Yeah, yeah.
without instruments. There's usually like this common ground that this natural order of things. I personally have a hard time being in a band and not being the dude, like the music director, so to speak. I have a hard time with that, but I have to swallow my pride sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, so I got a chance to hook up with my buddy Alejandro, who actually plays bass in a band that I play guitar in.
Awesome.
And this is, I think right now we're being called the How You Doing Band, and it's the band for Enzo Amore, the cruiserweight champion from WWE. I went to high school with him, and we've been him and Zaki Ali, my drummer from very many bands, plays guitar in this band. Everybody's just playing, you know, with everyone, doing everything. And so I got a chance to hook up with him, and I wanted to talk with him about some of the gear that he's had to use across so many different bands. So I've known Alejandro for about 10 years,
Mhm.
and he always has the nicest things to say to me about like seeing some of my other bands and seeing me perform. And so part of this that I wanted to bring up is when you're saying like when you're joining all these bands, you're supposed to like kind of be a politician, not like politicians nowadays, but about the ideal image of a politician where you're supposed to literally shake babies and kiss hands or shake hands and kiss babies, whichever you want to do. But I prefer to shake babies and kiss hands.
Oh,
And so you go around and you got to make a good reputation for yourself. And that's one of the things that Alejandro actually did for me. And that's why I want to bring that up is because in every band that I ever joined, all I wanted to do was make a good impression of someone, right? I
yeah.
wanted to just go and do this thing I love and have someone maybe consider me for another gig, right?
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what Alejandro did for me. So he's played in bands called Visions of the Vanished. He plays right now in a band called Concrete Dream, and he's also playing bass with Enzo. And when he was the guy. Like he was the total package. When Zach asked me, like they actually wanted me to play bass originally and keep it
Mhm.
like a 4-piece band.
Mhm.
And I didn't want to play bass in another band.
Yeah.
I've played bass in a lot of bands, right? That's most of what I do. I also play guitar. So I'm like, hey guys,
Yeah.
I'd rather play guitar for this. And they're like, well, who's going to play bass? And I was like, Alejandro. And they're like, yeah. I just said his name. And they were, yep. Like they knew too. The second I said it, it's like, oh, that was the right call, you
Good.
know? And it is like when you're up there, I watched this kid on stage and he just impressed me over the years. So we're gonna jump over. I'm gonna do a quick little interview with him, and then Holly and I will be right back. All right, everyone. I'm here now with Alejandro Mena from the band Concrete Dream. He's a super, super sick bass player. I've been watching him crush it for, I don't know, the last like 9 years or something like that. I think we were just talking right before this. We've known each other for about 9 years, 10 years, something like that. And yeah, man, I've just been watching you crush it for years. And now we're in a band together too, jamming with Enzo Amore and Zaki Ali and our buddy Greg Telfayon. But yeah, so how you doing, man? Thanks
Doing
for being on here.
Wow, man, that's a great intro. Thank you, man. I'm glad to be here, dude. You know, we talked about this for a long time, and I'm glad that we're making it happen. So,
Me
and when
three.
the podcast, the band, all that good stuff.
Yeah, we're trying to make the best of 2020. I was a firm believer in saying that I wasn't gonna make 2020 my hindsight. You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah,
it. I was just going to look forward. And as you reminded me right before this,
yeah,
I was given a good piece of advice, and it's really good to hear it, splash back in my face after sharing it too. Is you got to keep your eyes on the windshield, right? And you can't do that when you're looking in the rearview mirror.
exactly,
So,
exactly, dude. Pushing forward. That's right.
so I'm super stoked that you came on here. I wanted to ask you a couple things and get your opinion on some stuff. So, I've known you as a bass player. I'm reading my questions. I've
Yeah,
known you as a bass player forever.
yeah,
But you also play guitar, and you also have some super, super sick and killer vocals. Um, like what made you find the bass and then stick to the bass? Like, did you play bass first?
No, actually, I played the guitar first.
Me too.
Yeah, and I was playing by myself.
How old?
Oh, dude, I was 14 years old when that happened. My
I was
mother.
13.
Oh, you're 13? Wow, look at that. Stars are lining up. So, my mother gave me my first guitar, and even before I picked up the guitar, I remember listening to Slipknot, Wait and Bleed, and I was like, "Yo, what the hell is this?" I remember saying that to myself, and then,
They changed the landscape.
dude, I became a metalhead that day. One of my best friends came, like it was one of my best friends from baseball. He came, like we went over to my house. He came with the CDs, and put it on, put Wait and Bleed because that was their like debut single, and we just started moshing. Like I didn't even know moshing was a thing. You know what I mean? It was something like the music just.
We used to put on the tour tape that went alongside that first album, and we would just like rewind back and forth, like back and play, back and play of like Slipknot moshing on stage, and like they were so much energy. And
Holy
dude, they definitely are why they are the band that made me tune down for the very first time.
right,
Because their songs were in drop B.
right.
And so I remember being in, wow, you just sparked a memory back to literally me being in high school with my first band that I ever played my first show with. We
Right.
played in drop B tuning because I tuned my guitar down to drop B to play, to like learn Wait and Bleed or something.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, wow, that's crazy, dude.
yeah. Yeah, dude. Yeah, dude. And then, you know, and then I picked up a broomstick, and I was imagine like I was
Tom Cruise style.
yeah, dude. Like I would just look right in front of the mirror and pretend that I'm playing the guitar to like a Slipknot track, or to a System of a Down track, or to a Jimmy Eats World track, to like all these different bands. Like I swear to God.
K-Rock.
Yeah, dude, K-Rock. Oh my gosh.
You mean you just put on 92.3 K-Rock and then had an awesome life?
No, no, no. What I mean?
No, because I did. Like, dude, like I grew up
Okay.
here, man, and we had that. And like,
Yeah.
dude, those bands, like music was I don't know, man. All throughout the 90s into 2000, and like the early 2000s, I loved music. And being around here, we had a really great rock station.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's part of it. And we also have 89.5, man.
Yeah.
Not too many
That's
people
you, man.
have that.
Yeah, yeah. WSOU.
Yeah, dude. And you know it's funny. So like my son, my son's mom and I were just going over his like pending grades for the report card. One class he has an 89.5. And so I look over at his mom and I go, that's 973-761 9768. And she goes, that's 973-761 WSOU. like it's embedded in us. In fact,
Yeah.
growing up, my dad
Yeah.
always wore Seton Hall Pirates hats, and he didn't listen to he didn't listen to the basketball games. He didn't follow the basketball games. They didn't have a football team. So I was like, Dad, why do you wear Seton Hall hats? He's like, because of the radio station.
Right. It's like a New Jersey thing.
Yeah. You wear a Seton Hall Pirates hat because you like pirate radio, not because you care about the basketball team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I have my dad's Seton Hall hat in the
Oh,
club.
do you? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things I want. I never, like any band, even now, with Concrete Dream, hopefully soon in the future, we'll be on WSOU, man.
Dude, all you got to do is call them.
Yeah, we did, but it's fine. It'll be
No, you just keep calling them. You keep calling them. Listen, right. Darkness Descends. If there's any rule and law that you can learn from that band,
yeah,
you can call up Angry Jay right now and ask him, how do you get things in life? You know what he's going to tell you?
Go ahead. I think I know, but I want to hear you say it.
You ask. That's it. That's how you get things in life. You ask. And you just keep asking. That's it. Eventually they give in. Back in the days when Facebook didn't like halt your posts, and like if you had 4,000 friends, your message actually went out to 4,000 walls, right? We used to spam hardcore, and that's why Darkness, like was semi-successful.
Right.
There was a lot of Malaysian fans that used to interact with our Facebook like ridiculous. Like, I don't know how that was. But so like, sorry, so
yeah, I'm sorry.
This is gonna happen. This is gonna happen. I talk a lot. I'm Sicilian. It happens. You know what I mean? So all right. So you used to jam out and pretend you were playing guitar and bass to Slipknot songs and music of the times when you're around 14 years old, 13 years old-ish, right?
Yeah, dude. And then I was living, like, I would always hang out in the basement, and I will put these CDs. I'll blast them, and I lived in a Cuban household, where like salsa and like that was like the music to listen to because it was part of the culture. And then all of a sudden they're hearing metal and they're hearing all this. They're like, what the hell is that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, who is this demon?
Who is this? Like, who possessed this kid? You know what I mean? Who, I don't even recognize this child. So there
Alex, you're not looking so good.
It's okay, exactly. So I'm like throwing metal horns up in the air and shit. And what is it? That was just like every day. And then and then my mother was seeing me, my father was seeing me, jamming with the with the broom and everything. And they were like, something, let's just get this kid a real instrument. Maybe we should get him a guitar.
So what was your first guitar?
So my first guitar was called, you're gonna laugh. It's called a Johnson.
All right, you're slinging your Johnson.
It's called Johnson, dude. I mean, I wish I lied, but I want to
Was it like a Strat style? Was it like a Les Paul style?
Fender, kind of look to it.
Right. Yeah. And then did you have an amp with that?
I did have an amp with it. It was a Johnson amp.
Oh, Johnson on Johnson.
Johnson on Johnson, man.
Wow, look at that huge Johnson. Get over here.
Yeah, dude. And I remember, well, you remember when you started jamming out. Like,
so how did you take lessons right away or what?
No, I did not.
No, how did you learn, like, let's say your first chord? Did you get like a book?
There was a thing called guitar tabs at that time.
Yeah, but how did you learn how to read guitar tabs?
I pretty much put two together. So like, all right, there's numbers in there. Those numbers represent something. So maybe it represents these little boxes that are on the on this fretboard thing.
See, when I was like at that, are you older than me or younger than me? You're younger than me, right?
Younger than you, yeah.
I'm gonna be 37 in like a month.
Yeah, I'm 33.
All right, so like when I was like 13 and 14, the internet was still dial up,
right?
And AOL, and so my journey in the tablature world was few and far between because it took 10 years for a page to load that was a whole song.
Right.
But yeah, like I before I learned tabs like that, I wrote out tabs. Like I wrote down like 5th fret before I ever learned any of that, because I had a book. I had like one of those Alfred's music books.
Okay.
I learned the first thing I learned was a D major chord, and I realized I couldn't move that. And I like kind of gave up on the whole book thing once I found like a power chord, because I realized I could play the power chord everywhere.
Right.
I could play this. I learned this one thing, and it worked pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of playing like this hand twister game that I play nowadays, to get all those sweet sounds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so did you have a similar path, I guess, because you were learning songs? So you must have, did you like adapt what the chords were and start to learn that over time? Or was it just only what the tab said?
Well, over time, like not only was I learning the tab set, but like I was also trying to learn it by ear. Like I was trying to figure out, like, all right, what is this guitar player playing? Because sometimes they didn't have the guitar tabs for that particular song, and I really
Quite
love.
often when we were growing up, it was
Yeah,
not like today where you can just
exactly.
Google insert name guitar tab and just find 50 versions of it plus professional versions, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
There was
So
no such thing.
no such thing, right? So like I'll try to sound it out, like, and I'll keep on playing it and playing it, until I got it to relatively like close to to the song and how the guitar player was playing it. So there was a lot of that. And I was playing at this time, I was playing by myself, and at the same time,
Right, as we all
I
are.
was playing a lot of baseball. I wanted to become a baseball player.
I could
Yeah,
see you being a baseball player.
yeah,
You
yeah,
you
dude.
are
Like,
definitely a home run hitter.
yes,
I,
yes,
I could I could see that. So the second you said that, I was like,
yeah,
for
yeah, dude.
sure, dude.
Yeah, dude. So I was really practiced, like while I was doing that, I was also practicing in the guitar. And I remember I'll bring the guitar with me into the baseball club, right? And I'll just like, yo, guys, we got a game today. And like I'll play like a System of a Down riff.
Like some sugar.
Like I'll give them Chop Suey, or I'll give them BYOB.
All right, all right.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, because those are the later songs. See,
And those
I'm
are the later
I'm just
songs,
those
right?
2 years older, so for me it was Sugar and Spiders.
Oh, Spiders, hell yeah, Spiders.
Yeah, and Marmalade.
Normal, yes, yes, yeah,
Marmalade. They had that on the Strangeland soundtrack.
yeah.
See, so and that was another thing too. I think like movie soundtracks were so awesome back then. Major blockbuster movies had all the rock and metal bands.
Yeah, dude.
They had
Hell yeah.
all it was like, dude, it was what was up. Dazed and Confused, I think nailed it first because they were like there was like 3 and 4 Dazed and Confused soundtracks, and there was only no, there was two, but there was only one movie there, but there was two soundtracks because the first one was such a hit, and then all those movies though, like there was that whole horror genre
Yeah,
that
dude.
just came right along the 90s into the 2000s
Right.
and just pushed all of that rock and metal music.
Yeah, hell yeah. When you talk about that, I'm thinking about what is it? What's the name of that
Dude,
movie?
Dracula 2000, Queen of the Damned.
Yeah, Queen. Holy yeah, Queen of the
Queen of the Damned, dude. Are
Holy
we kidding? Are we kidding? The
yeah,
Strangeland, The Crow,
yeah,
Lost Highway.
yeah.
Like,
Uh,
dude, these soundtracks were on point.
Insane. Was
Yeah,
Static X?
Howard Stern private parts.
Yeah, was Static X on that album?
Which one?
The Queen of the Damned.
I don't know. I don't know, actually.
But what you're talking about reminds me of like Slipknot being in Resident Evil. Mudvayne being like, this is much later. Like being, I forgot, it was like a ship movie. I forgot what it's called, but
Dude, Marilyn Manson was on House on Haunted Hill. The movie opened on Sweet Dreams, dude.
yeah.
Forget about it. Like,
There
yeah,
was a lot of that going on. Yeah, there was a
yeah.
lot of
And what was cool too is like, so with that music,
yeah.
it was playable, right? You
Mhm.
could figure out that music.
Yeah,
There was that to it. There was that aspect of this music where if you knew these few power chords, you could play to it,
right,
you know?
right.
For me, my first amp literally was my radio. Um, like a week after I got my first guitar, my two uncles made like this cable that went from my guitar into the microphone input of my stereo, and it was like super low volume, but like I naturally did the same thing. I was playing to the stuff on the radio right away, trying to match sounds
Exactly.
because that was my amp, like in
Right,
order
right,
for it to be on, like it was on the radio.
right, right.
Like
Yeah. No,
yeah.
I hear you. I was yeah, because I had these CDs and everything. I was able to like go back and like play it again. But like
So how did you go
yeah,
there to the
from
base? Is that
yeah,
just because you get gunned for hire?
because I was needed.
Me too. So did you buy your first bass to be in a band?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I remember buying my first bass was a 4-string Sound Gear Ibanez.
Mine too. I still have it. One of my students uses it.
Yeah, remember the video of Concrete Dream and me smashing the wall?
Oh yeah.
That's
Was that one the one that was all graffitied up?
yeah.
Why don't you talk about that real quick? That's for the song Contagion, out now, right? On YouTube.
It's on YouTube. It's on all social platforms, on
I love that
Spotify.
music video so much.
Yeah, dude. Don Capria. He's our man.
I love that music video. Yeah, please check it out, guys. Concrete Dream is the band
Yeah,
that
Concrete.
Alejandro plays for. It is such a sick video for the song Contagion.
Right.
Awesome. Super awesome video.
Thank you, man. And it was a collective effort, and Don Capria had.
I like the color grading. Like that's where you get me. Like
yeah.
The content is super awesome, and you and I've discussed that I love several of those shots, but the color grading is I just love it. I love this new school of being able to make things look however you want.
Right. Yeah. Don, like, bigs up to Don Capria because he was the director of it, and he did an amazing job.
So you bought a bass to play in a band.
So that band
was that band Visions
of the Vanish eventually became Visions of the Vanish. I mean, there was bands even before that, like we were used to be called, we went through like 2 names.
I think I know of like 2 or 3 of those names.
Where are those?
I can't remember. I'm gonna wait till you say the name.
So before Vision of Vanish, it became Fact from Fiction.
I definitely knew that. That's how Jay introduced you guys to me. He was like, these are the guys from Fact from Fiction. And I was like, who the hell is that? I didn't know, because I didn't know. I was like the only guy in the band that didn't know you guys, because I was just coming around.
And even before that, it was called Nursery of the Dead.
I did not know that one.
Yeah. That was with Robbie, this kid named Daniel, and Joey.
And then after Visions, what did it become?
Enochian.
Yes. See, that's what. See, I did know 3. I couldn't have named him. For sure. But.
So it went through so many goddamn phases. You know what I mean? It was interesting.
As it does.
Yeah. It was definitely an evolution, and it was with the key members. It was with Roberto Miranda. It was with Ernesto Grazzi, who's still currently in. They're not called Enochi anymore. They're called Enochs. They had
semantics.
Yeah.
I know of a band called the Real Descendants of Darkness too.
Oh, really?
All right. So you start off with this first Sound Gear.
Yeah, Sound Gear.
What was your first amp?
My first amp was
so you bought this bass to play in a band, so you had to buy a big amp right away?
No, actually, you remember Darren?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he had a Fender Rumble amp. It was like a Fender Rumble amp. And then
those things punch, man. Those things punch.
Yeah.
I've used them for lessons, dude.
Yeah. And
for any rehearsal, they're like more than enough.
Yeah, they're more than enough, right? And
you want more for a show, but they're more than enough.
Yeah, exactly. And what I really liked about it, I mean, it was like the little things sometimes that count. I mean, besides the sound, like when you played, it had like this red highlight.
The red light.
The red light, right? It had the red light, right?
The bass reactive light built inside of it.
Yeah, that was so cool. I thought that was so cool about that amp. And then it went from that to now. I was like, all right, I got to graduate. I got to take I got to take this to the next level.
So, all right. So you started off with the Fender Rumble, and then went to what?
I went to a 4x10 MPEG, and I also bought myself an MPEG head.
What MPEG?
SVT 7 Pro.
That seems to be the go-to. Dude, one of my dreams is that I was able to, the mic's blocking it, but I was able to finally, after all these years, get the Ampeg SVT2 Pro,
Oh
and
no.
it's all tubed. It's it's the
Yeah.
7 is the solid state power amp and tube preamp.
Yeah.
This is all tube, 300 watts.
Yeah, it was too expensive, man, for me.
No, kid, dude, it took me until it wasn't until
Yeah.
I was going on the full Michael Graves tour. Like I even bought like a faux pas kind of rig like
Right.
last minute to play for Graves for Canada. Like I just bought these ash down heads
Right.
because they were tiny, they were compact. I was able to bring them.
Right.
But yeah, the second tour, I bought this thing like for $600. It had been dropped.
Shit.
And then I put $500 into it like 2 or 3 times since then. So yeah,
Damn.
listen, it's been out of reach my whole life, but this head has been $1,500 as long as I've known.
Yeah.
I still paid it. I just kind of wound up paying it in installments because of how I went about it. But that was the only way I was able to,
Yeah, yeah. And then something. At that time, I bought it at Guitar Center,
I
and
love. But by the way, I love those SVT sevens. I
yeah,
love those,
yeah,
dude. I've
they're
wanted one
they're
for a minute.
awesome, man. They're awesome.
I wanted to pick up one as like a backup, but then I stopped using this head like live a lot. So
Mm,
but I was good. That's what I was gonna do. I was gonna get the 7 as a backup.
Oh, as I said, oh wow, nice. So yeah, I actually paid for that through the
Guitar
guitar.
Center credit card.
There you go, Guitar Center credit card, and
Musicians like best friend is pay like play while
yeah,
you pay.
yeah, pay while you play, and then it took me 12 months to like pay for it all. But yeah, man, like that was really like an exciting day for me, man. Because
Dude, I know, right? So hold on. So like what did you feel? All right, so you go into Guitar Center.
yeah,
You're playing this Fender Rumble, right? You're playing some shows.
yeah, yeah.
Did you keep that bass with that Ampeg, or did you get another bass, or what?
No, no, I still had the same bass. I
Dude,
still,
good, because those basses rock.
yeah.
Did you only have one bass, or did you have that in like a backup?
So here's the thing, like, I did not have a backup. All I had was the sound gear, and something I didn't really think too much of it. I was like, oh, why do I buy another one? I mean, that was not even the thought, what I
Yeah,
mean?
of course.
Until some shit happens to you during the show, and you're like, yeah, I should
Till
get
you learn the hard way.
Yeah, yo, sometimes that's how you have to learn it, man. You have to learn the shit the hard way so that you can get shit done.
So how excited were you though when you brought that Ampeg home? Like, did you bring it home? Or did you bring it to the rehearsal studio?
Dude, I brought that shit to
You
the
bring it on or like a ride around down the block and shit and show it off to your friends? Like, yeah, man.
Yeah, dude. I flexed a little bit. I was like,
The hell yeah, as you should. As you should. That's a good day.
yeah, it's a great day. And I was at where we were at. We were at Streets, dude. That's where when I got it.
Oh, all right.
Do you remember that neon sign I had on top of my SVT 7 Pro? It said bass. You don't remember?
I
And then you're like, dude, like, I don't know why you have this thing here because this thing can break.
because it was gonna fall off or something,
Fall
right?
off or something.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, I remember that. I didn't remember what it was, but I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It was just like a neon sign. It was like a beer company, but it was bass. It was called.
Oh,
Bass.
right. Bass Ale.
Bass
Ale, but
yeah,
bass.
yeah,
Right.
Bass Ale.
Yes.
So
I
I
remember.
was like, yeah, man, I'm gonna bring this awesome neon light, and every time I play bass, I'm gonna turn it on. So whatever. It was something corny, but whatever. I just thought.
All right. So then you had that and then you rocked that for a while, right?
Yeah, I rocked that for a while, and then what happened?
When did you start taking your so in the last few years, your rig has been something crazy. So you started off with like a sound gear and a Fender Rumble, and then slowly moved up. And
Right.
now you got some sick stuff, man. You have a Dingwall bass, you have a Kemper.
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
You have I know you were using a Sans amp.
Right, yeah.
What does your rig consist of now?
Right now, it consists of the dark glass 900-watt head.
Right. Which
Um,
head is it? The Omega?
it is the Omega, correct? The Alpha Omega head, and it's 900 watts.
I want one of those so bad.
Yeah, man, they're awesome. It's definitely the modern, I would say the modern day bass sound, especially for metal. But it's very versatile though. Like you get
I wanted to get that for Nita. I wanted to get that head and then the pedal,
yeah.
the BK7 pedal,
Oh,
and
the
Lauren,
BK7 pedal, right?
yeah, and Lauren was gonna hook me up with the deal. I met him at NAM,
Mm-hmm.
and he was gonna hook me up for the Nita Strauss
Exactly.
tour.
Was that the owner, Castro, or
Lauren,
Lauren? My bad.
Lauren. I don't know what his last name is. I just know it was Lauren.
Okay.
But I had just bought this Axe Effects for these Michael Graves shows that I never used because I no longer played in the band. So like I really wanted to buy that, but I couldn't justify not using this thing that I already spent like that same amount of money on, you know?
I know.
I was going to spend double the money of what I had already, like,
Right.
and then it would have been cool, but it was like, it
Yeah.
sounds so awesome. I just got to use what I have, like
Well, I have it here, so you can always test it out for yourself. And
well, thank you. And I love the Axe Effects too. And the other thing is, it's like,
yeah, that's awesome.
being a guitar player at heart, it's really cool to just have my guitar channel right there.
Yeah.
Like it's cool to have, guitar bass.
Yeah, dude. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I use that and I run that through a Sans amp, and that's the
so you go bass into the Sans amp and then into the Alpha Omega.
Yeah.
And now when you do that, do you do a mic line out of the Sans amp also?
No, I don't.
You just use the Sans amp as a preamp.
Yes.
Into the Alpha Omega.
Into the Alpha Omega.
And then for sound, are you using a mic or are you using the DI out of the Alpha Omega?
DI.
And are you running a cable or are you running a wireless?
I'm running a wireless.
What wireless?
Line 6 G90.
Line 6 G90. So line 6 G90 into the Sans amp, into the Alpha Omega direct.
No, I'm sorry. No. So it's line 6. I'm sorry, line 6 G90 to the. Hold on. To the.
Oh, you have your pedal, your tuner pedal, right?
Yeah, I have my tuner pedal. Oh, wait, hold on. No, I'm running that through my tuner. No.
Oh, the tuner goes to the tuner out.
No, I'm running that through the line 6 G90 to the dark glass. And then is it that way? Hold on. Just trying to think. What the hell? I don't remember my setup.
If you run the G90 to the dark glass, right, you'd have to have the Sans amp in the effects loop or something.
Right. Dude,
all right. And so
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. We know these things when they're in front of us. When they're, dude, it's out of sight, out of mind. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I've been a stage side electrician, my whole life. One of those things like learning the hard way, so you used to know my big darkness board, right?
Right.
I used to have all these pedals, all the amps, I've always had crazy amounts of amps on stage.
Oh, now I remember now. Sorry.
Yeah, no, go.
It goes from the input into the output of the Sans amp, and then from the Sans amp all into the wireless. Does that make sense?
Sure. I don't know. I'd have to see it. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. So the Sans amp is all coming on the wireless?
Yes.
Oh, I think you just said it, but you said it in reverse. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah. I said it in reverse. Right. I did.
Right.
I went from finish to beginning.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I get that. Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. And now and then you also have.
and I also have I have a Kemper. Um, I used to use that. I used to use it live because the Kemper I bought has a built-in power amp, which
Yep.
is 600 watts. But for some reason, I mean, there was nothing defective about it. I just wanted to change up my sound, and I wanted to use that more for the studio. You know, I mean, because
I remember, dude, with Concrete Dream, you were showing up to gigs, and I had people texting me being like, dude, you have got to see Alejandro's setup. Because everyone knows that I'm such like a gear hound, right?
yeah,
And when you started showing up with that Dingwald and the Kemper and like the cabs and stuff, and dude, Zach was calling me up. He's like, bro, you got to check this out. You don't even know. This is like years ago, man. Like when you first started rocking it.
really,
At that one place where they had the Jersey City.
was that
It was
place?
like I don't know, it was no, or Laura's art gallery show or something like that.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yes, that was
I think I was on tour.
yeah. I think you were on tour, and that was in Sound War Studios, and we were doing an event for Laura's event. I forgot the name of the event. I know it's like a suicide awareness
Yeah, it was for the URock Foundation, I believe. It was
foundation. There you go. There you go.
yep. Yeah, and there was tons of great people involved in that. So,
Yeah.
how much do you it's been a pretty expensive journey, right? From
Oh
beginning of bass to the rig that you have now, huh?
yeah. Oh yeah, dude. It
When
has.
so do you think that you upgraded your equipment on schedule, or do you think you preempted with some of your equipment? Do you think that having certain equipment um pushed you to want to do bigger things, or what?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Pushing to do bigger things, and I don't like to think of it as I got this equipment. Whether I got it at the right time, or I should have done this like sooner rather than like later. I just look at it as, hey, I bought this thing. This is what I wanted. Um, I'm going to be contributing to the sound, to our band. And
And you feel that your
that's how I look at it.
contribution to your bass rig helped the band grow, right?
Well, in the live aspect of it, yeah.
Live in, but even in the studio. See, I think
Yeah.
I bring that up because I'm a firm believer that as a band works, right, and musicians hone themselves and sculpt themselves, it really does drastically change
Mm.
how the band is going to sound. Usually for the better, because we're supposed to be all getting better as time goes on, right? So but yeah, so I was just wondering, like, if you thought like the difference of that Fender Rumble to the Dark Glass, do you think that changed the way you write your bass lines for your bands, or what?
Good question. I think, thinking about it, it's a 5 string now, as opposed to me playing 4 string. So, at those times, those are different times. And now with that fifth string being there, um, there's a lot you can do, especially in that low end. So I think there's a lot of like groove, a lot of low end rhythms.
So
There's
do
a
you find that do you find this might be a good, I like this question.
yeah.
Do you find that when you played a 4 string that you had more low end in your signal, and now that you play a 5 string, do you find yourself rolling off the low end a little bit more than you used to because you're playing
Well, the
low?
Dingwall. Well, here's the thing. That's a good question too. So with the Dingwall, I feel like well, the reason why I got the Dingwall is because we played in a drop tuning, right?
And that doesn't that have something dark glass inside it too?
Yes, as a preamp, as a dark glass preamp in it. So when you turn that thing on, it just it's booming, man. You know what I mean? What I really like about it is that the dingwall has such like a presence, you know. Not only does it have the low end, but like it has a distinctive sound to it, you know. Which I'm going to tell you something. My band doesn't like. What I mean by that is Concrete Dream. They don't like the Dingwall sound.
Yeah, actually, it's kind of fieldy. It's kind of fieldy periphery. It's got that twang. They probably want that dead string Fender P bass sound.
Yeah, and I have another bass. It's called it's a Ibanez BTB, the same one that you have. So they like that sound more over than the Dingwall. And I remember we had like a whole serious conversation about it, right? And they're like, listen, you know, we don't like the Dingwall. We want the Ibanez BTB sound.
They just don't like it because it's yellow.
No comment.
You know, yeah, it comes down. So that's very funny. So
yeah.
In this episode, we are talking about how when you get a gig for a band, that you have to figure out your place in the band, and you have to grow with the band.
Yeah.
You have to make sacrifices. You have to make compromises.
Yeah.
We talk about that all throughout this episode. And like, it's really important to sometimes bite the bullet, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Your battles.
Exactly. So, you know, I looked at it as, it's funny because
you get to now you get to have a say on the vocal mix on the next album, because you're not going to play that Dingwall. That's what I'd be like, listen, you got to put this echo on your vocals, or I'm playing this bass on this song.
Nice. I'll use that. But no, I looked at it as like a compromising thing, because it is a band, you know. Yeah. So I was like, all right, sure, why not, man? You know, whatever, you know, I just want everyone to be happy. But I'll be honest.
So that stinks, huh? That stinks to spend all that money on that bass and then find out that maybe it's not the right tool for the job. So that's part of the gear journey also is damn, you know,
but I knew I was going to use it, you know. I for my solo shit, for like things maybe that's going to happen in the future, so I'm never going to give that away, you know.
Speaking of your solo stuff, how would people find you yourself on all of the interwebs?
Find me, like, as far as like what style?
Yeah, how would someone be able to find you and see all the stuff that you do for?
Oh yeah, they can find me on Instagram. So it's at Alejandro __ Mena __. So
you're impossible with those 2 underscores twice.
All right,
and 2 underscores twice.
2 underscores right between Alejandro and Mena, and then right afterwards.
Yeah, and we'll put that down below here.
There you go. So yeah. So
all right. So with all of this, you got tons of different stuff. You do a lot of your stuff is mostly solid state so far, from what I've gathered, other than that SVT 7 Pro that that had a 12AX7 II preamp, if I'm not mistaken.
It does. Yeah.
Right. But a solid state power amp.
Yeah.
So this question should be a no-brainer for you.
Yeah.
Analog or digital?
You gotta ask that question, huh?
One or the other. Because you got lots of dark glass going on. You got lots of Sans amps going on. You got lots of stuffs going on there.
Right. So I guess I don't know. I've been, you know, in that what is it? I've been in that electronic field, right? So that digital field. So I would say for now, digital, you know, because that's part of, you know, the Concrete Dream sound is digital. Everything, I think it's like it's a new school.
And so Concrete Dream has a lot of like program stuff too, because you guys have like a trap rock.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's, other than the guitars, bass, drums being there, you have the trap element, you have the hip hop element to it, you have the electronic element to it. There's like a lot of shit that goes into
You
the.
guys play with the backing track, I assume, when you play live?
Yes, what we do play with a backing track. You
Who
know,
runs that?
so it will be my drummer who runs that.
So that was another thing that made me want to make sure that I stuck with
Right.
the Axe Effects world.
Yeah.
After the dudes at Axe Effects were so awesome to hook me up with this thing with a good price on this thing for the Graves tours.
Right.
I've always been I really love the allure of the switching digitally, and so many bands I work with now all run backing tracks.
Hmm.
It's really a thing. To the laptop is 100%. Like Milli Vanilli got booed off the stage for having a CD skipping, and here we all have laptops. So yeah, we all have MacBook Pros while we play now. Even our metal songs, like
Yeah, I think it's
Dime be rolling. He'd be rolling in that grave if he knew what metal bands are doing now, man.
but things change over time, man. You know what I mean?
They
Like,
do, they do. Well, having a laptop and like people don't realize like what we're really doing when we do stuff like that is like it's hard enough to have a band with 4 or 5 guys. What the laptop does is it allows to bring the CD or album quality production,
right,
not the song, right, but the quality of the production, that the producer vibe, the hard work, the blood, the sweat, and the tears, the things that we don't have all the extra hands to be able to play live that we may create. And if we had like real band members for all those elements, every band would be 3 Slipknots, like
right,
there's a reason why there was orchestras back in the day. It's because yes, it was for volume, but there was so many different instruments, like the amount of instruments just was for the volume, but there was all those different elements because each instrument is a different texture. And that's what we are. We're artists who paint landscapes, and we create either a safe haven or a battlefield for you to express your emotion on. And sometimes we want to paint a more in-depth picture. You know, you never look at an artist who uses a full palette of color and ask him, why didn't you paint that in black and white?
right,
Never, right?
right. It's like,
You
well,
might ask
yeah,
the black and white artist, why don't you paint that in color?
right,
But he'll just say, because this is what I saw, you
right,
know? And
exactly,
that's the dude in an acoustic.
exactly. It's like, what kind of question is that? It's like, what?
Yeah, you're very much a digital guy. See, I very much was an analog guy. I did have my solid state amps and my pedals. I have always had digital pedals. Um, but once I got a tubed guitar amp, my very first one, I actually bought two at once. I bought the Crate Blue Voodoo that that's in the bottom of this rack down here. And then I also bought a PV Valve State. No, the Marshall was the Valve State. PV had their other version where it was the same deal. It was like a solid state power amp, but a
Right.
tube preamp.
Yeah.
Uh, I forget what it was called, but I didn't love that. I did wind up selling that. But once I found out like what the tube amp sound was, I kind of never went back.
Mm,
Um, like I never ever bought a solid state amp after that. Until these Axe effects and digital effects came out. Like I never even liked the Boss multi effects because I never really wanted to feel like I was playing a Game Boy trying to find my guitar tone, And I do suffer with that because I have the Axe effects too. So it's even the green screen, like just to make me eat my own words.
yeah.
But I operate with Axe Edit, so I do it on on the computer, so it's nice and colorful. But like, I don't want to feel like I'm playing Metroid when I'm trying to, set my tones, and that's what I always felt like with multi effects. Axe Effects has the interface right. I don't know. I like the way they have it laid out where I can feel comfortable, but
Right.
that's just out of convenience. That's because if I could, I would bring all of these amps. I'd bring all those amps everywhere if I could. But
I love
each
that
one of
triple
those is
X
like
you got
80
in the back
pounds.
there, man. I love that triple X you got there in the back.
Oh yeah, that was given to me by a student. I have a triple X,
Nice.
Crate Blue Voodoo, the 300 watt, the 300H,
Yeah.
Ampeg SVT2 Pro. Right here's a Hughes and Kettner
Mm.
Tubemeister 5, PV 6505, and the Crate Blue Voodoo 120H on the bottom.
By the way, I used to own a 6505.
Yeah, and what happened to that?
I sold it so I can get a bass.
I once traded.
I'm still kicking my ass for it.
I traded my 1985 Monte Carlo SS
Mm-hmm.
for a Charvel, like a $2,000 Charvel guitar.
Mm-hmm.
I later traded that Charvel for like an $800 Ibanez BTB 6-string bass. I traded a car for a guitar and then traded that guitar for the bass. And so I started playing 6-string, around then.
Right. I
Like
remember that
2009, 2008.
you had another BTB bass, right? I know it was an
I had so I had
string, right?
I had the O negative one, right? The green one. Chuck
Right.
used to play in Darkness, and then I played it in Graves. I was playing that for a while until I did a music video with Alex, and I always used to do guitar spins, and bass spins. And the strap that I know all the tricks about strap pins pulling out and all this stuff and blah blah blah, and like that shit never happened to me. I was using this guitar strap company that was a vegan company.
Vegan.
Yeah, it was a vegan company. It's a company I work with sometimes on some stuff, and I have a bunch of their stuff, and I don't want to say anything bad about them, but the material they use that goes around the strap pin on their straps does not hold up to the amount of sweat from me live. And so when I was doing these bass spins in this music video, I should have known that it was going to happen because I had already been through 3 straps with this problem, but I like taped the strap on, but I like didn't do it good enough.
Okay.
And it pulled that bass was so heavy, that green one, that was heavier than these. It was twice as heavy as these BTBs that we have.
Right.
It was twice as heavy.
Wow.
And it ripped right through the strap and the headstock broke off.
Wow, dude.
I still have that bass. It just sits in a case with a broken headstock. I showed pictures to the guys at Ibanez and they were like, it's unfixable. They're like, we can cut the wings off and give you a new center section. But he's like, at that point, you might as well just get a new bass. And I was like, yeah. So I'll just I'm going to put it in a frame one day, I'm going to bolt it to a frame and put it on the wall, broken bass.
I remember that actually. I seen a picture of that, but I'm not sure where I saw that picture.
Either mine or Zach's Instagram. Zach took
It was probably through some form of social media for sure.
Yeah, and that was cool because that was a 5-string bass with a 5-string BTB with a dual truss rod, where these ones we have a single truss rod. So I really like that because especially for a 5-string and the BTBs in such a wide neck, just having that ability to control it that much more, and prevent the twist that does happen on really fat pieces of wood,
Right.
But yeah, man. So I used to be all analog, and now I totally am in love with the digital world. It's finally starting to come to where it's almost unmistakable. Almost. You can almost can't tell the difference now.
Yeah, when manipulated correctly, right?
I used to think people were crazy when they would listen to songs and be like, dude, I can tell that is a Strat, and I can tell that that's a Les Paul. I'd always be like, dude, you're crazy. Now I'm like, dude, that's a Les Paul. Dude, that's a Strat. Dude, that's a Schecter. Like, I can hear the active pickups in that. Like, I can hear that this dude's using a Kemper and not a head. Like, I'm that guy now, but it takes all that years of developing.
Right. And being around it. Right, I get it. I got it.
Well, listen, man, I have kept you here long enough.
Okay.
I want to say thank you so very much
Oh, thank
for coming on here and answering some questions here for everyone. Um, those of you who follow my Patreon page, you will see this full extended interview with me and Alejandro. I totally got like ployed him on here. I was like, dude, it's gonna be like 30 minutes, 2 hours later, whatever. But
you. In 2 hours?
no, it's been a while. It's been a long time. Since a little bit after 8. It's a little bit after 8. So it's almost been 2 hours, pal.
Nice, man. Nice, dude.
But this is a good look into it. This
Yeah,
is a nice in-depth look. And I really appreciate you taking your time to talk this stuff out with me, man.
likewise, dude. Likewise. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so make sure to follow Alejandro at Alejandro Mena __, and to check out his band Concrete Dream. They have an awesome song called Contagion out now. The music video is so legit. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on here, man.
Thank you, brother.
And welcome back. All right, so that was awesome getting to catch up with Alejandro. He's so cool, man. He has made me feel like he's made me blush so many times with just telling me all the nice things that he says to me. So I know, again, how important he holds the saying yes to the gig up in his list of requirements there for pushing his career forward.
Yeah.
It's just a necessary part. And I've watched him grow, and that's another thing that we've spoken about on other episodes too, is, you start off small and then you grow and you learn something and then you push yourself and then you grow. And he was just a bass player in a band. And I've watched him become a sick guitar player and a super awesome vocalist.
Thanks.
And on top of all of that, he's a really, really good guy.
Yeah.
Like, if he was all of those things and an asshole, I wouldn't have wanted him in this band. And if, and I'm sure there's people who think that I'm an asshole, but if people think you're an asshole, you obviously don't want to work with them anyway. But, but you just got to do your best. Like I said earlier, like, you can't make everyone happy all the time. But if you're working with someone and you see potential in someone that you want to collaborate with, put the extra effort in,
Absolutely.
ask them for their phone number, reach out to them, wish people a happy new year.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people that I've worked with over the years that I don't care. They do get the Merry Christmas text. They do get the Happy Birthday text. They do get, the Happy New Year text. If they're like my horror punk fam, they get the Happy Halloween text,
Nicer person than me, because I don't send anybody text or answer any of this.
Well, that's one of those things that I do for some people, the people who I showed my son yesterday. I have 1,825 phone numbers in my phone.
Wow.
1,825. Now, I don't talk to all those people all the time, but so many of those numbers come from just being on the road, meeting people, getting sound guys' phone numbers, getting opening bands' phone numbers, getting headlining bands' phone numbers, getting, like whatever, meeting anyone.
I really think that is a main tool for anyone, any business, anyone trying to make a name for themselves. They really have to learn is your email list and your phone number list is the most important thing, because obviously, as we see, certain things can just be vanished and you won't have them anymore. So those connections need to be those connections need to be real. And those are the people who are going to support you. Those are the 100 to 200 people who are going to buy your album when it comes out.
Yeah, and like, all you need is 100 true fans, like, out of everything, right? I read so many books on marketing, and I constantly like just I send Holly screenshots constantly of all the marketing books and everything I'm reading. And so many of like those marketing tips, they are 100% the same for being in a band as it is working for a Fortune 500 company.
Yeah.
You want to do the best you can and be a great human.
Yeah. When you go to business school or go to classes in college for business, the first thing they describe is the value or what a widget is. And because they can't tell you what you're going to sell or what you're going to make your business out of. They can only teach you business. So the idea and concept of business is good for everything. It's a blanket type of learning system and it's economics, right?
Yeah, you know what no one ever understood when I was growing up is that like I always used to work in pizzerias, right? I don't know, it's just like a thing that all guys in bands in New Jersey, everyone works at a pizzeria, right? And I just used to notice that bands used to sell their t-shirts for $10.
Yeah.
They used to sell their CDs for $10. And you know what else was $10? A pizza.
Pizza. Yeah.
So like I would tell people like they're like, how are you gonna make money? I'm like, well, pizza places make money. Like a product is a product, right? Yeah, I know that when you buy a CD, you can consume it, infinite amount of times, but it doesn't mean you can't sell it,
Yeah.
and what you can't consume an infinite amount of times is that feeling of being at a live show, which we all miss right now. But like that's your pizza pie is that live show.
Yeah.
That's your $10 admission is that person eating a pizza on a Friday night. You know what I mean? Like they're going out to your show on a Friday night. And I've always understood on how an album was just a widget, which is,
Yeah.
it's just a pizza. It's just a pack of sneakers. It's just a hard drive. It's just a keyboard. It's just an object
Yeah.
that if you put effort
Yeah.
into it and build up clientele, they'll buy it.
Yeah, and your clientele may or may not come from social media. It may or may not come from the show. The clients come from everywhere, or people that want to buy your stuff come from everywhere. I was at the airport one time with my bass and talked to this lady who just thought it was so cool that she met a musician in the airport, and we're friends now. And she buys all my albums, so it's just like that's how you make those connections. It's you really have to be your analogy, a politician when it comes to like getting your music out there.
The idealism of what a politician is, right? Not not what the world shows us nowadays.
Not what they've shown us they are.
You know, yeah. But we're supposed like it's kind of like mayoral status, like you want to be if you want to be mayor of your town, you want your people in your town to like you and you're going to do things for that. And it's not just so you can be mayor. It's because you want to be mayor, but it's also because you might actually like feel good about something and want to do good for someone. Like I love being the dude that gets to be all sweaty and sloppy and disgusting on stage and water all over the place and sweat. And every time I headbang, someone's
Yeah.
like, it is what it is, man. I got news for you. They love that.
They do.
You know what I mean? I'm not being rude to them. They're literally experiencing this show. You know, it's like when you go to see me on stage, it's like seeing Gallagher.
40. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like seeing Gallagher. Like just bring your raincoat.
Yeah,
That's it. You're fine.
No, there's going to be a watermelon smashed.
Yeah, for sure.
Gallagher show.
Yeah. And that's part of the experience, right? Like that's what we want. Dude, has anyone ever been to a Guar concert? Like,
oh my gosh.
you show up in a white shirt. You don't wear a black shirt to a Guar concert. You know why? Because you want to be covered in red and green gook by the end of the day, and then you want to frame that shirt on the wall, man. Like,
I have some pictures of some friends that went to a Gore show. Now, I do the exact opposite. I don't go to the front, and I dress up like in pink and like a Barbie. And it's so awesome because nobody's dressed like that. And I took one of my girlfriends, first time, she never heard of Gore before. Like, it's cool. We'll have fun. You'll enjoy it because it's so crazy. And she's like, okay. And we dressed in pink and black and we're tall blondes, and we're, walking around with all these people.
Came out of there with purple hair.
It was really cool, actually. We stood out for sure.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't come out of there with purple hair.
Well, a friend of mine who went with us, well, he got a ride home, but he had a
You
white
didn't ride in the vet, huh?
Yeah, he here riding back with us. He got there in a white shirt, of course, and I have a video of him taking off after everybody's cleared, and it's just a pull of red stuff, and he did a slide into to the stage, like full on. I mean, he's just covered in blood. I know, gross.
I got news for you. I dropped that green Joker hat I wear. That's my second one. You know why? Because the first one fell off my head at a Misfits concert for about 35 seconds. Hit the ground. I picked it up. It was so goddamn dirty.
I've seen a guy so wasted he ate a pizza off of a venue floor. And everybody's trying to stop him. He's like, "No!" I'm like, you're so gross. You just don't. Even
there ain't nothing that a venue has that I want to bring home. I've worked in my fair share of venues.
How much would it take? How much money if somebody bet you to lick a venue floor? How much money would it take?
So, I have this singer from this band. $0, by the way. I would not do it.
Oh,
I would not do it. But I had this singer, Joe Vasta, from this band, Darrow Chemical Company. And there was one song, every single night, he would get down on his hands and knees and he would lick the floor or the stage or the carpet or whatever. Dude, he did it every single night while we were on tour. We did 2-3 tours like that.
Yeah.
Every single night he would get down on his hands and knees and he would just I mean, he wasn't ever sober.
G.G. Allen.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you right now, dude, if anybody who's watching this right now who knows Joe Vasta from Darrow Chemical Company knows that when you say G.G. Allen right after that they're like, oh yeah. Like, okay. It makes sense. Like Ramones and Murder Junkies. It's and Danzig and Ramones, Murder Junkies, Danzig Down, and Misfits. That's that dude.
Sorry, whoever that guy is, I'm sorry, but it reminds me of something G.G. Allen would do. So.
Yeah, and like I said, that's totally in his character. He has G.G. Allen everything. I once ran into Merle Allen randomly when I think when I was with Static X. We just happened to stop at this rest stop. And it was Static X and Dope, and we ran into the Murder Junkies at like a Flying J.
Wow.
Dude, it was random. It was so random.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, we are not trying to have a 17-hour podcast today, so we are going to see you all on episode 8 when we get a little bit more into some of these bass aspects of life. You know what I mean? So I hope you guys enjoyed the interview with Alejandro. He's one of my dearest friends, and we have more guests coming up. And so hopefully you guys will like, share, subscribe, follow Holly on Patreon at patreon.com/HollyWestMusic and all things internet/HollyWestMusic. And you can find me on Patreon at patreon.com/DeanMusicOfficial and all things on the web, on the interwebs. Official Dean Music or Dean Music Official. Just type in one, figure it out. I hope everyone has a phenomenal start to this year. I know that it's been a little crazy, but I can guarantee you that the things that Holly and I have in store for you are going to make this year fly by. So thank you guys so much. I hope everyone has an awesome day. We'll see you soon.